Tom Belding, how are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, Greg. Nice to see you. I'm doing
It's nice
fine.
to nice to see you as
Living,
well. I think
living
it's a little
through
cold
living
where you're
through a
at.
rough winter.
Yeah. I think we all have. It's been colder than usual, especially here in Florida, man. Woo, the iguanas are just falling from the trees.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, let's jump into it. Um, to get started, why don't you just tell us a little about who you are, kind of what you do, and maybe what you specialize in.
Great. Thanks, Greg. So I'm a certified financial planner. I work as a fee-only fiduciary. That means I represent my clients. I don't sell products on which I get a commission or a financial incentive. I provide services tailored to my clients' interests, and I bring to this over 35 years of professional and entrepreneurial and research experience, as well as a great deal of personal life experience. So I work for my clients. I am thrilled to be doing this work as a certified financial planner. I'm a member of the Garrett Planning Network. I'm a part owner of Garrett. I'm also affiliated with CGN Advisors. They are my RIA. I do financial planning as well as investment management, although those two are not, it's not mandatory to do both. I work on an hourly basis as well as a fixed price basis, and I serve clients around the country, although most of my clients are relatively local, as I'm one of the few fee only fiduciaries in my area. It's nice to get together with people face to face while we're doing the planning
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's interesting. Something that stood out to me. Well, first of all, you do also sounds like flat fee planning for an hourly rate, and also um, based off of assets under management. So you have a lot of flexibility in your pricing model, which is great. People who aren't yet ready to jump in to have their assets managed, but kind of want help, maybe preparing a financial plan or something on an hourly ad hoc basis is something that you offer, which I think is really, really awesome for certain people in certain circumstances. But I want to touch on something that you said, which you said that you bring an entrepreneurial kind of angle to this because you're an entrepreneur. So maybe we could talk about that for a little bit. How do you think that how does that background, that entrepreneurial background, benefit your clients? What does that bring to the table in your eyes?
But that's a wonderful question, Greg. I think for anybody who has been an entrepreneur, ever started a business, however small, a lemonade stand when you were a kid, or something serious when you were an adult, being an entrepreneur helps you more than many other exercises, certainly more than working in many organizational environments. Helps you learn to focus and to think things through. When your butt is on the line, when it's your money, your time, your family's livelihood that is depending on whether or not you can sink or swim, it really it is really quite a training process. So I've done that on more than one occasion, and I've helped others do the same. And I have had situations where I was very successful, and I've had others which were very challenging.
Mm,
But
yeah.
there's nothing like being an entrepreneur to learn to train your mind, to train yourself, to think about, okay, what could happen here, what could happen there, how can I make sure that the way I'm approaching this is going to make sense, is going to have legs, is going to generate cash flow, whatever, meet the financial goals that I've set up for this.
Yeah. So I'd imagine too that when being an entrepreneur, like the buck kind of stops with you. So you learn how to think through problems and solve things for your own volition.
Right.
And being able to be the advocate who has that mindset on behalf of your clients is something that's very valuable to them in solving problems and taking
Uh,
also ownership of helping them solve those
Totally.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, another thing that it does is it teaches you more than many other things how interdependent you are, what you're doing is with the people who supply your raw materials, the clients that you have. My appreciation for how vitally important the connections I have with people are is much enhanced because of that process. And I would
Absolutely.
relate it to the process that many people go through when they are thinking about financial planning. So when you are going to retire, you're planning to retire, which is many times how people reach out to a person like me. That's kind of like becoming an entrepreneur. You're going into an environment where where the variables are now all kind of under your purview.
Yeah. That could be scary, especially
You're
if you
not in a
feel like you're
safe,
doing that for the first time, right? That
you're
could be a
not in a
little
box of
scary. Yeah.
safety.
Yeah.
You're wading into the deep water, and it's really, well, it isn't really. Hopefully, it's not sink or swim, but it's an environment where there's a lot of uncertainty,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
important to leverage connections such as with a good financial advisor.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the people that you work with. So maybe you could describe the type of person who comes to you and what makes them reach out.
The this kind of common thread that goes between the folks who reach out to me is that they have made a decision. They've come to an awareness that whether they're early in their career or late in their career, whether they're planning for retirement or maybe there is a terminal illness, or a child with a disability, whatever the initiative, whatever is incenting them, they come with a goal, with a need to plan for an environment that they're not sure about. They may have some good ideas. Oh, I think I've saved up quite a bit of money in my 401k or whatever, and I've got Social Security, and maybe I got a pension, or oh yeah, we put a trust together. But they realize that, whoops, there are things going on here that I don't maybe fully understand. How are these taxes going to work? Once I start having to take required minimum distributions, geez, I've been told for years and years I should put everything I can into my 403b or my 401k. But now I'm finding out that everything that I've got is all this tax deferred money is a huge issue, because it's all taxable income, and tax rates may be increasing, likely will be increasing in the future.
Hmm.
And I could have been putting this money into a Roth, and maybe if I was really smart, I did when they first became available in the late 90s. But my HR department never told us about that. All they said
Yeah.
was, it's a good idea to save for retirement, and I need to know how to approach this.
So they're getting close. The things that they've been working towards that were in the background are starting to come into their awareness, and they're starting to think about it. And they probably wake up one day and they're like, "Oh, damn, I've been doing this for 30 years and I was like, it's never going to get here." And then, oh my gosh, one day they wake up and it's here. So they have all these questions. Okay, so
Could be
let's do
that.
this.
Yeah.
Let's maybe talk a little bit about some specifics around like industry, um where your clients kind of come from. Could we get a little bit more specific about perhaps? I know that you work with a lot of different people, but are there any specific industries that you find that your clients are in that you serve? Um, Anything stand out
I
to you?
I have quite a few clients from the healthcare industry, so I've spent a lot. I've spent quite a bit of time in health related fields during my career. My wife is a nurse practitioner. We have a lot of connections in the healthcare community, so we do get some leads that way. Um, I've I have a number of clients who are widows, and they kind of talk to each other, and so so that references are invariably a good connection. As far as industries go, my clients come from all kinds of different places.
Yeah.
from a stockroom clerk in a long-term stockroom clerk in a large grocery store, to people doing international, market and source development for a major, consumer products company, to uh, people retiring from the insurance industry or the banking industry. Uh, one of my one of my first clients was a client who was a long-term professional in the banking industry, but realized that he didn't necessarily have the skills and or the time to put together a financial plan for he and his wife. And we worked together. We built their plan. It was a wonderful experience. She had a career as a nurse. A couple of months. I mean, he was prescient. A couple of months after we finished the plan, he died all of a sudden from COVID,
Mm.
and so his wife had to face the very distinctive challenges of being a widow.
Yeah.
So,
Man, she was
anyways,
blessed to have
planning.
you to help her through that for the financials. My father died a couple years ago, and my mom had to do all that by herself. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
So
So,
that's
anyways,
good that
a
you were there.
decision to plan, and this affects all of us when we get to certain points in our lives. The good thing is, the important thing is, if you realize that you can't do it all yourself, or you shouldn't really try, even if it's just get a second opinion. So I have a lot of folks that manage their own money, and they're very confident about that, but they're not too sure about what's going to happen with taxes. If they were going to do a Roth conversion, what's the optimal way to do that? What in what time frame, or so forth. If they were going to put together a special need trust, what kind of assessment should they do about what the needs are going to be of their dependent child or relative?
Yeah. So you have many clients with very diverse backgrounds. So maybe we could bring this all together. Do you know why do you think they end up choosing you? Like somebody's thinking about calling you or working with you. They're in a situation that you've described. They realize it's kind of time, and maybe they're talking to you or maybe some other advisors. And in hindsight, any insight on why they might choose you or want to go with you over others?
Sure. Good question. So I'm pretty analytical, and I'm also a teacher. I've been a teacher. Um, I like to work with my clients, and I engage with them. And one of my goals is to teach them, to help them feel empowered in this really fairly complicated process of assessing all the variables that go into a life, a 20-year time frame of retirement, for example. And so from the first get acquainted meeting, which is a 15-minute, usually a video call with clients, I try to convey that I'm expecting them to fully participate in this process, and to engage with it in a way that they might not have been thinking about, but which I assure them, and they usually do find this to be the case, is very enlightening, and,
Mm.
as I mentioned, empowering for them. So, and that comes through. I really get into details. I I pull my clients into an environment it's very digital. So we do some things in a binary, in a non-digital format, but everything's pretty digital. It's very efficient, and it's a lasting kind of a connection. So once we build a plan, clients can continue to engage with that plan and see how what changes in interest rates, changes in the stock market, changes in their own financial goals will impact that plan. And I'm happy to work with them.
So do they like that you find that they like that you're analytical, and you get into the details with them, but
Most
it
clients
sounds
do
like
that.
you lead them through.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think most clients do, and but not everybody is looking for for analytical. But if you don't want to get into the, I mean, you need to see what does your cash flow projection look like for the next 10 or 15 years. If you're living in pre Social Security, pre RMD world now, you're in your late 50s, your early 60s, whatever, a pre Medicare, that world and the cash flow that's involved there is quite different than what it's going to be if you haven't converted your tax deferred assets to Roth by the time you're 73. There is a significant difference there, not only for your cash flow and your tax obligations, but also for your estate planning. So estate planning is a vital aspect of financial planning. That is, thinking through what kind of an estate do you want to leave? What form do you want that in? And do you want to pass along assets which don't have significant tax obligations? Have you thought that through? Oh, I didn't really think about that. Well, inheriting a regular IRA, a traditional IRA with RMDs, with fully taxable ordinary income for 10 years is a very different bequest than leaving Roth IRAs to your children, which are tax-free, still have to be pulled out within 10 years, but can be invested with that growth being tax-free during that 10-year period. That's a very different scenario than, okay, my kids are going to get my IRAs.
Yeah.
So anyway, things like that.
Yeah, let's talk about more. Let's talk more about your clients. I know something that you do is you work with special needs, right? That's
Yeah.
a niche that you serve, which is very interesting to me. So, what does that kind of look like for you? What are some of the things that would be specific and to a person who needed financial planning regarding
Yeah,
special needs?
this could be. I mean, this is a world unto itself almost in certain respects. So this can range from how do I can I use some legal means to get a quality education for my learning disabled child. My public school district has done what they can do, but the resource room or the integration process they have isn't really working for my child. I want to get my child into a private special ed school, but I can't afford it myself. I need the school district to pay for it. How can I make that happen? Well, I spent many years in that world, and I know very well how to work with a client to help them engage due process and use unilateral placements and other means to get that job done
Sounds
with
like
appropriate.
there are a lot of things that there are a lot of different paths or opportunities that they don't know about, and that you do.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I'd imagine that's a very valuable thing where they
Oh
explain their
yeah.
situation and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you could do this. You could do
Yeah.
this. You could
And
also have this
another
option.
would be just we have a special needs child. We want to make sure that we have enough resources set aside to do that. What's the proper way to set up a special need trust? What are the considerations in assigning a trustee? Um, well, we've got a number of children, and we want to treat them all equally, but we have this one child who's got some unusual needs that need to be taken care of. How can we do that? Another example would be I've got a special needs relative, and that relative had a medical emergency, and we had to move him from one state to another state, and that person's on Medicaid. Well, Medicaid is run on a state by state basis, and the procedures and processes vary from one location to another. So moving relative from state A to state B, which makes total sense because where the family is located, was a non-trivial, actually multi-year legal process. So I'm not a lawyer, but I work with lawyers. I work with people's accountants. If we do a Roth conversion, the the tax preparer or tax advisor for a client is going to be integrally involved in that process. But I'll be making the recommendation. I'll be doing the tax workup so that we're coming at, any of these situations are one where the financial advisor, a person like myself, would be able to help set the stage, do a lot of the homework, and make the whole thing work more efficiently than it would otherwise.
So it sounds like you're almost like a quarterback in these situations. You help them with the plan, learn about the situation, and then you can pass them along to other people that you work with who specialize in these different things while also maintaining continuity throughout their situation to work through specific things.
Very good observation. Yes, I would say that's quite
Wow,
accurate.
that is awesome.
Quite accurate, because a lot of
I can
times,
see how that would be really valuable to somebody.
see a tax preparer, for example. A tax preparer is generally in the business of helping you minimize your taxes this year. Tax preparers don't generally have a long-term, perspective. And so when you go to a tax preparer and you say, I'm thinking about doing a huge, not necessarily huge, but I'm thinking about doing a large Roth conversion, it's like, okay, well, why would you want to do that? Because you're going to have to pay more taxes this year.
Yeah.
But when you look at a 20 or 30 year time horizon and you see what the difference is between having tax deferred assets that continue to accumulate versus shifting them over into the Roth bucket, and appreciating tax free, it makes total sense. But you have to be able to step back and look at the bigger picture. And all of these
Let's
things.
talk about that for a second. I'm really curious to know more about that. How do you get to know your clients in a way where you can have that long-term perspective? Like, what does that look like? Help us understand how some of the ways you get to know your clients so that you can better understand the long-term perspective and learn about them as individuals. Because without that, I'd imagine you couldn't make these recommendations. You kind of just be grasping at straws.
Yeah. So, very good question. So we start with a couple of questionnaires, one of which is very preliminary, another which is very detailed. And then once we are in agreement on moving ahead, then my clients fill out, complete a client data request, which asks them for statements on all of their financial accounts, their most recent tax returns, their Social Security statements, any loan or obligation statements, the declaration pages from their insurance policies. I want to know pretty much everything about their assets, liabilities, their cash flow. What is their monthly spend in general? What are the goals that they have? I want to put my two daughters through college, a private college or a public college, in state, out of state. I want to provide enough to renovate my house next year, or to sell. I have a couple of properties. I want to sell one of them, and then put that money to work in my investments. What is that maybe going to look like? So I gather a lot of what lawyers would call a discovery process, but we don't call it that. But we gather a lot of information. Then I meet with each client on a number of occasions to go over this.
So it sounds like this is a series of calls that take place over like the course of a year, ongoing.
A series of calls and meetings, which initially, most intensely, is within the first couple of months, and then periodically during the first year. So usually within a 2 to 3 month type of time frame, we have a base plan, and that base plan is something where the client is also, as I mentioned earlier, engaged in that and interacts with the plan. Not hugely complicated, but very informative and valuable. So I get to know them pretty well, and we go back and forth, and I help. My goal is to understand really where they want to go, if any limitations are present, and help them think about things. Oh, well, you have a will from 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Do you also have a healthcare directive? Do you also have durable powers of attorney in place?
Do you find they often understand what these things are, or do you have to explain them those
It's a
two come.
mix. It's a mix, but most clients actually don't know a lot of fundamentals. A
Yeah.
lot of fundamentals
How do you approach
about
that without overwhelming them? Like,
one step at a time.
yeah. So it's
One
probably
step at
like
a
sounds
time.
like greater levels of clarity, and
Yeah.
this understanding builds
Well,
upon itself, and you kind of lead them through this without them feeling
as we
overwhelmed.
all do,
Yeah.
as we all do. You start you start with basics, and you build on that, and you build on that, and you ask questions and you interact. And as you learn more and as your perspective develops, you can appreciate and understand more, more things.
Yeah.
Another part of this conversation is other essentials that are part of the picture: cybersecurity, personal security. You everything that we're doing in a digital world, and we all hear about the stories of fraud and so forth. So I do spend time with my clients, helping to make sure that they feel comfortable that how they are approaching the digital footprint that they all have. We're going online to the bank, we're going online to our investment account,
Yeah.
we're sharing information. No, you do not want to attach your anything with your personal information as an email attachment, because email is like a
Yeah.
postcard, right?
So it's
So
good to have somebody who's thinking about these things and reminding them so they feel like somebody has their back. So, okay, so we're talking about more long term horizons, your plan, how you work with your clients on an ongoing basis. It's a process. It's not like a one done thing in many cases. So when you put these plans and you're working on things together, do you like put it on paper? Do you have checklists that you work through? How do your clients see progression on these things? Do you have meetings every quarter? Walk me through maybe like the timeline of what it looks like to work with you in a year. From starting with you, let's say today, a client starts with you, you set them up with the accounts, you get all the data that you need. But where does the rubber hit the road as far as giving the clients clarity, working on a longer term plan, and working on goals together? Like what's the cadence? What's the process? What does that look like?
so so once a client uploads to me in a secure digital form all of their statements, their financial statements, as I mentioned earlier, within 10 days we'll sit down. So when that happens, I look over those documents, and then I have a group of staff, planners, who will integrate that information into our model. The model that I use is Orion Planning. It's a very advanced planning tool. Within 10 days at a time that I've received the client's documents, I'll be able to sit down with them, and this can be in person or by Zoom, and review a preliminary model. And in that process, we will say, does your data look reasonable? Is it accurately representing what you believe your financial statement, your financial position to be? And we're talking incomes, expenses, assets, liabilities, cash flow, all that stuff. And so it's going to be all there, at least in a preliminary form. We're going to review that. We're going to review goals. Maybe they came into the process thinking, okay, we just want retirement planning, tax planning, educational finance planning, whatever they've specified. So they're going to specify their goals, when we're getting going.
So
And
there
then
are
we're
things
going
that they
to,
didn't think about also
right.
that were
Things are going
reviewed.
to come, they're going to become aware of certain things. Oh, I can do this. I can make a particular, I can set a goal for, saving X amount of money for an emergency fund, for example, or for taking the kids on a trip every year for the next, 5 years or whatever it might be. Anyway, so we're going to have a first meeting within 10 days. We're going to have a second meeting, and then that meeting is going to result in a number of follow-ups, probably some on their part, some on my part. And we're gonna look in more detail at certain questions and so forth. We'll have a second meeting, could be within 2 weeks to 3 weeks, depends on scheduling availability and so forth. We'll look at that plan again. I'll start. I'll back up. So once I start working with a client, we have an orientation session. So I I walk them through the two tools that they'll use. One is called Ignite. That's where we save. It's an encrypted cloud-based system where all our data is saved, and the clients have access to that. And then the other is Orion planning, as I mentioned. So we do have an orientation meeting very early on in the process where we go through that. Anyway, so we iterate. We have our first meeting, a second meeting, a third meeting, depending on where we're getting and the client's development, their understanding and comfort level with what we're doing. Now, this may at this point lead to say that a client wants to talk about having their assets managed. So we'll go into that aspect of how we handle that. Or if we do that, managing assets is integrated with the financial plan. Charles Schwab is our lead custodian, and those accounts are linked, as well as other accounts. So not unusual clients have accounts at Fidelity, Vanguard, TIA, other organizations. So we those are all part of the mix. So we're able to look at a comprehensive picture of a client's
So it sounds like your
estate.
meeting cadence the first few months is pretty extensive and frequent, and that's kind of to get things rolling. But once things are kind of rolling, what's the process look like to check in? Do you do like a quarterly mandatory meeting with any calls in between for questions that come up ad hoc, so they always feel like they have access to you? Explain maybe the high level of what it looks like once the ball's kind of rolling.
So this is really pretty much up to the client. So when I engage with a client, it's usually on a fixed price basis, and that gives them 1 year of access to me for basically whatever they want within the scope of the financial plan and related questions. So this varies from client to client. Some clients like to check in, every month or two, depending on what's happening. Maybe their company is going through some kind of change or acquisition, or maybe they've changed their retirement plan, or maybe they just made available a Roth 401k option, or something like that. So all kinds of things can develop, but it's really up to the client. So I definitely want to meet with a client at least once a year, once a plan is in place. Every quarter or 6 months is also possible. If I'm managing your assets, then at least a quarterly conversation is a good idea. Although we issue monthly and quarterly reports as well. But the client, and to your earlier question, the client does get a financial plan, a document. It's usually a PDF within their file folder in Ignite. But it can be hard copy if they want that. I have some older clients that are really not computer based. Do that.
Hey man, I still like having hard copies of stuff because if it's on the computer, it's out of sight, out of mind, man. It's hard to find. It doesn't exist. But if you got the piece of paper, So I get it, and I'm a millennial.
I get it. I do get it. I do get it. But these plans are pretty detailed. So I do encourage my clients to work online and to interact with their plan or access their plan within the Orion planning environment online, because there's more detailed information there. You can play what ifs. You can look. You can drill down in the categories of expense, taxes, RMDs. What is my RMD on this particular account going to be 10 years?
Sounds like it makes it more real to them too.
It's very
more tangible.
It's exactly. So anyway, so that's highly recommended, but not totally.
I love the flexibility. I love that you offer these different ways to work with people, and it's up to the client. But I know you make recommendations that are in their best interest, which is great. Okay, so let's wrap it up here. This has been really good. I know that there's so much that you do. You're probably one of the most eclectic advisors I've ever spoken with, just being transparent with you. Love that entrepreneurial background. But for somebody who is interested in possibly working with you or learning more about how they can work with you, for someone listening who wants to get in touch with you, how could they do that? What should they do next?
So just go to my website, beldingfp.com, beldingfp.com. Go to the homepage. You'll find an intro to me and my services, more information about my background, and at the bottom of the homepage, there's a link where you could schedule a get acquainted meeting. That would be the easiest way to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate your time, and keep serving those clients, man. They need you.
Thank you, Greg. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine.